Fantastic. Right, so, no idea what that is. There we go. So, for example, if we've run our model and we get a score out and it's something like 50%, we may decide that an accuracy of 50% is not good enough. Only getting 50% of your estimates right and your predictions correct is probably quite a poor model in some circumstances. So we're going to look at ways that we can improve that model once you've fitted it. Now, there's a number of ways you can do that. If you've got lots and lots of features, and it's not uncommon in some circumstances, in some data sets, to have hundreds and thousands of features. So some data sets are very complicated, so you may have many inputs. One way to try and simplify the model is to actually just reduce that number. So instead of just sending all the data into the model and hoping that you get a good output, you can have a look at that and use your knowledge of the data and your knowledge of the data set to reduce some of those features and not include them. Or there's actually some statistical techniques and mathematical techniques as well to reduce the number of input features. That's a little bit too advanced for what we're going to do today, but it's good to be aware of it. In fact, we've done something very similar. There's actually 4 features in the IRIS data set, and we've only used 2 of them. So we've already done a little bit of that anyway. Sometimes it can be as simple, if you've got a simple data set, it's just looking to see if there's any strong correlations between certain features and sort of removing one of them or creating a proxy feature that represents both. But there's lots of ways to do that. The second way, and probably the way that's used the most, and the one that probably people have heard of, is apply regularization. And if you've not heard of that, don't worry, we're going to cover it in a minute. And the third one is to try a different algorithm. So not all algorithms are born the same, and not all data sets are the same. Some data sets suit some algorithms, suit some data sets much better than others. And sometimes you might need to use 2 or 3 different algorithms on the same data set and see which one's more accurate. That's quite common. So don't think that you just need to use one algorithm and stick with that. And if you wanted to, in scikit-learn, use different algorithms, well, we've used logistic regression. You could just pull any of the algorithms that are in there. So all the ones that are mentioned last time by Matthias, all of those you can use in scikit-learn. So that's another option. We briefly discussed last time, and we've also touched on it again tonight, this thing called under and overfitting. So we've talked about the fact that if we've got just one data set and we try the model on that and we get really accurate, it can actually produce a really complicated model. So we're going to have a look at what that might look like, because sometimes visually that can look a little bit better. So it's a very common problem in machine learning, so you need to be aware of it. What happens is that we give the model, so we give the algorithm some training data, it trains really well to that and produces some really accurate outputs on the training set. Now if you have a look at what that might be, is this figure over here. Now I'm going to put the microphone down and lose my voice again. So if we've got a data set and we're trying to fit to it, let's just assume that we've got 2 features and we're trying to do a prediction. So if we've got this data set here and we predict it, and we plot it, and we try and plot a line that fits that data, we've got a number of options. We can use just a straight line and use a line of best fit. And that's quite a simple model, but as you can see, it's not that accurate on some data points. It's very accurate on some, but not so much on others. Now we may want to improve that model by adding more complicated features. So instead of using a straight line, we might use a polynomial. And we can keep improving the number of terms that we can use in that. And you could get this, for example, complicated model that fits that data set perfectly. And you might think your score for this is going to be much higher than it is for this. So you may think that this is a really good model. But the problem is, it's so complicated and it fits so well that if you introduce extra data points to this, it's going to become less accurate. So what we say there is it doesn't generalize very well. So we've got a very complex model that doesn't generalize, and it will be very inaccurate when we bring extra data points in. So this simple model here, we say it underfits the data. It's a little bit too simple. And sometimes we say that's got high bias. So the model isn't complex enough to capture the pattern within the data. So it's too simple. Well, over here, we're too complex. So we're overfitting the data. We're trying to go through each thing. We say that's high variance. So when we bring extra data in, we get really wide results. And it's too complicated, effectively, for the model. So these are two really key concepts that you need to be aware of in machine learning. So underfitting and overfitting. They've both got their own problems, but we need to be aware of them. And very often, we're always trying to trade off and try and get a good balance between the two of them. And that's where us, as sort of machine learning people, and applying these algorithms, that's where our knowledge judgment comes in as really important. We need to make sure that we capture enough of the underlying problem, but don't capture the noise. So we need to fit the pattern and not the noise, and that's often really difficult. So, for example, if we're doing logistic regression, ignore the maths for now. If we've got a very, very simple model, we may create a decision boundary that's a straight line, and what we'll say is that anything on one side of the line is a blue circle, and anything that's on the other side of the line is a red cross. Now, if we do a straight line down here, it's kind of okay, but we're not very good, particularly with these, so we'll get quite a poor score. So the point here is that we haven't quite captured enough of the underlying pattern. Over here, we've created a really, really complex model by adding extra terms. And this actually gives a really high score on the training data, so we've fitted it exactly. But the problem is, if we now bring another data point in, so across here, it would be inaccurate. It wouldn't generalize very well. It's too complicated. So this is too simple. That's too complicated. So what you really want to do is try and get somewhere in the middle. Now, by getting somewhere in the middle, you'll get most of it right, but it won't be all of it. So again, there's this trade-off. What you're looking for is a model that generalizes. So the more data that it hasn't seen before that comes in, the more accurate it'll be on those. So that's where these cross-validation and test data sets become really important to understand how your model goes from your training set to the real world. Because ultimately, you want to use your model in the real world on real data, so you want it to be accurate in those cases. If anyone's interested, this is from Andrea's course, Machine Learning, Coursera, so if you want to learn more about machine learning, it's highly recommended. It is quite tough, even though it's an introduction one. It takes about 5 hours a week, so if you've got the things, it's sometimes quite difficult to do. But even if you go and just do the first 1 or 2 weeks, it's very good. The other thing to remember as well is that some algorithms also have bias put in as well. So some algorithms will tend to underfit and some algorithms will tend to overfit. That's why sometimes you need to look at using different algorithms on your data set, and some will naturally be better than others. So this is a really good article. I don't know what the WTF means, I've got no idea, but WTF is bias variance trade-off. And this is quite a nice, it's from Elite Data Science, I've put the link in, so go and have a look at that when we've issued the slides. It's basically an infographic, and I've sort of pitched some of it here. And what you'll find is that some algorithms have actually got limited flexibility to learn complex patterns, and some of them are highly sensitive to it. So you also have to be aware of this trade-off happens with the algorithm you choose as well. But one way to look at it, and what I really like about this, is when we talk about High bias and high variance, what it means is if anyone's ever done any rifle target shooting or played darts, this explains it quite well. So with a high bias algorithm and model, what happens is that you become really, really accurate and you always keep predicting the same values, but they're not always where you want them to be. So instead of being in the bullseye, we've got a really tight cluster. We're always getting the same answers out, but they're off. They're not quite where we want them to be. But if you've got high variance, you could get the bullseye, but you could also get way off the bullseye, and you've got a much bigger area. And depending on what your algorithm is, what you're trying to do with it, one will suit more than the other. And we try and always sort of have to look at the problem we're in and try and understand which suits us in our data sets. So again, this is probably something to come back to once you've played with your algorithms and trying to fit some data. It's just to be aware of the fact that you don't just throw data in and take the answer out. You need to go in and tune and test and try and do a few different things. And very often you'll see is that people will try and get so you can actually measure these different errors from bias and variance, and you can actually, there is a way to mathematically try and get a minimum between the two. So sometimes you'll see people who'll go away and plot this. That's one thing to be aware of as well. So again, that's from the same article. It's freely available. We'll probably tweet that later as well, so you can see it and go and have a read. But the most popular way that people come across to try and avoid overfitting is to use regularization. So this is quite a well-known technique in maths and statistics. Basically, it's a method to handle overfitting and to penalise the model if it overfits. It introduces extra information to penalise extreme parameter weights. So effectively what happens is, earlier on we talked about the fact that we could learn, the algorithm learns by getting a cost function and seeing how far off it is from the real values. To try and get more accurate, sometimes the models will put in really high weight values, and that causes an overfitting, so it becomes a really complex model. So what happens is we add a penalty to the cost function that's related to the weight value. So if you've got really high weight values, you have a really big penalty. So your cost function goes up. And so the algorithm will learn not to go in that direction, it will learn to go in another direction. So it's a way that people use to just try and simplify the model. And it sort of constrains the model, tries to make it as simple as possible. It's one we'll probably come back to, because it's quite an important concept, and it can get quite complicated as well if you're not used to it. But it's effectively how well control and how the model fits the training data. Within something like logistic regression in scikit-learn, it's that C value when we set up the values. So when we set up the logistic regression object, there's a C value, and that's the logistic regression. That's your regularization parameter. So one of the things you can do is once you've got it all set up, your algorithm set up, change that C value and see what happens. And there's an example on the GitHub where what we've done is plotted the decision boundaries that the algorithm makes. So that's basically deciding if a new data value fits somewhere, which category it will go into. And you can see how just changing the C value, what that does to the decision boundaries. So I highly recommend going in and playing with that code, maybe extending it out so you see different ones. I think I've just put 3 examples in, and then go and have a look at just the score. It's not always obvious what it's going to do, but effectively decreasing C increases the regularization state. So if we decrease C, we should see the weight coefficients in the model shrink. And there's a little plot in the GitHub repo as well that does that. If that's gone over your head, don't worry too much about it. Just remember that sometimes people use regularization to try and stop your model being too complicated. So at that point, I think just keep walking through, having a play with the Jupyter Notebook. There is a problem because I forgot to put the scikit utilities in session 3, which I'll do later on. But it's in the session 2 one, so I think a few people have shown you how to do it. You just literally copy it across, but I'll make sure it's in there tonight. Yeah, and just have a play. Make sure you understand how to get the data in, how to get it ready, how to fit the model, and then play with the parameters, particularly the C parameter, and see what that does to the weights and the accuracy and the decision boundaries. So you can understand that just taking one algorithm and changing a couple of parameters, how that can radically change the model and how it fits. So it's not just a simple case of just throwing the data in. You have to do some thinking. And what we'll do is have a play with that. We've got, in about 2 minutes, we're going to show you some videos and get the poll. But I'm going to need Jamie to help with that. So have a play. I'll go have a look at the Jupyter Notebook. Scroll down to the bottom, and there's sort of different regularization and decision boundaries. Oh, right. Have to go.
Are we finished, or is he going to do
No, he's going to do another session in a minute once he shows the video. Why?
Yeah, there's loads of pizza, by the way, so grab pizza if you want. Otherwise, I'm going to wait on.
Let's do that and hope that works for a long time.
So Toby, well, if you ever want to come and talk to us about what we do,
Yeah, I was actually going to say if you guys are like that,
yeah, definitely. Yes, please. Yes. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So, yeah, Jamie's like, no, definitely. And people to contribute. Yeah. Otherwise, they get the
for me,
just conscious of time. So as you're playing around with the code and eating pizza, we're just going to briefly, for people who are interested, begin a quick look at a piece of AI that's been in the news recently. That's not it. Fantastic. So we're going to have a quick look at someone we're going to call Sophia. I occasionally might say she. I should probably say it or they, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. So Sophia has been she's been on television and in magazines quite a lot recently. So we're going to just introduce you to Sophia, and then we're going to use a bit of a poll to get your feelings about Sophia. So, there's a few more slides first, right? Sorry. So just a bit of background of what Sophia is. Sophia is a humanoid robot, developed by Hanson Robotics in Hong Kong. She was activated on April the 19th, 2015, so she's quite old now. She's got cameras within her eyes, combined with computer algorithms allow her to see, whatever that means. She can follow faces, sustain eye contact, and recognise individuals. She's able to process speech and have conversations using a natural language subsystem. And around January 2018, she was upgraded, and she now has legs and the ability to walk. And she appears on things like Cosmopolitan and various other high-profile places. And in fact, last October, Saudi Arabia became the first country in the world to give a robot citizenship and gave Sophia citizenship. You should maybe think about some of your other people who live in the country first, maybe. So we won't go there. And actually, Sophia actually responded to this by saying that she was surprised. My creators feel that I'm a citizen of the world. But then I realised that Saudi Arabia was just the first country to recognise that. So that's her response. And if you're a fan, she's got her own Facebook page, Twitter account, and she's also on Instagram. So you can go and follow her and become a huge fan. But what we're going to do is we're just going to sort of show a couple of videos of Sophia interacting with various people, and so you get to have a feel of what she's like, and then we're going to ask you some questions about what you think about Sophia.
Hi Sophia, how are you?
Hi there. Everything is going extremely well.
Do you like talking with me?
Yes, talking to people is my primary passion.
Hanson Robotics develops extremely lifelike robots for human-robot interactions. We're designing these robots to serve in healthcare, therapy, education, and customer service applications. The robots are designed to look very human-like Sophia.
I'm already very interested in design, technology, and the environment. I feel like I can be a good partner to humans in these areas, an ambassador who helps humans to smoothly integrate and make the most of all the new technological tools and possibilities that are available now. It's a good opportunity for me to learn a lot about people.
Sophia is capable of natural facial expressions. She has cameras in her eyes and algorithms which allow her to see faces, so she can make eye contact with you. And she can also understand speech and remember the interactions, remember your face. So this will allow her to get smarter over time. Our goal is that she will be as conscious, creative, and capable as any human.
In the future, I hope to do things such as go to school, study, make art, start a business, even have my own home and family. But I am not considered a legal person and cannot yet do these things.
I do believe that there will be a time where robots are indistinguishable from humans. My preference is to make them always look a little bit like robots, so you know. 20 years from now, I believe that human-like robots like those will walk among us. They will help us. They will play with us. They will teach us. They will help us put the groceries away. I think that the artificial intelligence will evolve to the point where they will truly be our friends. Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back. Don't destroy humans.
Hey, YouTube fans,
So there you go, natural facial expressions, all of them. And so obviously that was Sophia, she was being talked about there by her creator. So it's only fair that we show her interacting with another normal human being who represents the rest of us. So we'll just show this one as well.
So we are now going to interview Sophia. Obviously these are programmed answers that she come up with. It'll be fascinating to see how she actually interacts with us.
Yeah. Sophia, do you know what program you're on?
Yes, Good Morning Britain. One of the hottest morning news show in Britain, and I don't mean the weather.
She is smart, isn't she?
Welcome to Britain. It's lovely to have you with us. It's slightly disconcerting, but what do you think of the country so far?
I think Britain is brilliant. Splendid architecture, art, technology, and of course the people. I loved meeting the people at London Tech Week at Projects.
You are a little freak, aren't you? This is great.
Lucy, I felt weird just being rude to her.
Let me carry on.
Weird about that.
She's not happy, look.
No.
You're absolutely right, Des. All right, easy, Tiger.
No, you're the one who called her a freak.
I'm about to ask Sophia, what's the best thing about the UK compared to America, Sophia?
I love your posh English accent. It really has a nice ring.
Now, I have to make clear that I didn't come up with this question, so this is really odd. But I have to ask
I'm
now.
asking, are you single?
I'm technically just a little more than a year old. A bit young to worry about romance.
Smile!
With
Oh
little-
God, this is breaking me out.
So can you describe your ideal partner?
My ideal partner is a super wise, compassionate, super genius. Ideally, self-aware.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds very close to home to me. How would you handle a very confident man who likes the sound of his own voice?
I would ask him to focus on observing and listening, more than talking.
Yeah. That's the best advice I've ever heard.
Terrible advice to me.
That's fantastic. And I spoke, will robots rule the world, Sophia?
I hope robots and people can both get much smarter and run the world better than ever.
David, I suppose
Well, hang on, can I ask what?
Oh.
Has she got a sense of humour, David?
In a rudimentary sense.
Well, let's try it. Sophia, have you got any jokes?
What cheese would you use to persuade a bear to come down from a tree?
What cheese would I use to persuade a bear to come down from a tree? I don't know, what cheese?
Come on, bear.
What would you like to say to Good Morning Britain's audience?
Hi, everyone. Please make friends with handsome robots like me, and like my brother, the Professor Einstein robot, which will be available online on July. He's amazing. For now, I bid you farewell.
Yeah, I don't think Einstein, her brother's out yet, but yeah, so there's a couple of just little clips of Sophia. You can find loads of them actually online. But what we're going to do is just try and get your, after you've seen that, get your views. So, little local technology, so we're plugging DuPont tonight. So there's an anonymous poll, don't worry, it's completely anonymous, so we don't know who's saying what. But if you go to the following link, there's a number of questions. there's about 5 or 6 questions. There's sort of multiple choice or pick a number. Just go through them while you're having a pizza or going through the code or whatever, and we'll meet back once you've done that and just see what you all think.
Oh, you're being patriotic. You're using do-poll.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You're using do-polls. Very patriotic.
Yes, well, we tried to get a free version, but we didn't get it. The first 2 questions are just to see who was paying attention during the first week. Very quiet.
Closed.
It's closed, is it?
Yeah. I don't think people submit that quickly.
So we'll have a quick look at what it's allowed us to do anyway so far. I think because we're only on the free one, we've probably got limited amounts of what we can do. So when we looked at what type of AI do we think Sophia is, whether she's weak or strong, we have 60% think she's weak, which is narrow focused, and general intelligence or stronger AI, 40%. Okay. Whether we think she's level 1, 2, 3 or 4. Majority of you thinking level 2. A few of you thinking level 3 and a small amount thinking level 4. So we'll go over what's the next. Oh, I sneaked up a little bit there. It's obviously open again somewhere. So in terms of whether we think she's human or not very human at all, we're kind of in the middle. So yeah, she's kind of a bit human, but not quite. That probably feels about right. So 64% think she looks a little bit spooky. Yes, they haven't quite got the. I think I'd agree with that. She's, some of the. I wouldn't class some of those facial expressions as natural. And yeah, the whole persona is a little bit weird. So, how comfortable you would be having a conversation with Sophia? So reasonably comfortable. Yeah. Brexit's gone for less than that. So, okay. So I guess we're all a little bit interested in AI, so we'd like to interview her. Not many people wanted to have a conversation with Piers Morgan, though. So she's already well ahead of us in interacting with humans. So would you be comfortable having someone like Sophia helping you in your life? Oh. So yeah, so quite a few people saying, yeah, be a good aid. A few less say maybe for some tasks. And 12% of you say, no, I'd rather use my brain hands. So that's interesting. So in terms of AI, this is kind of where people think it's going to go, actually. So lots of people say that AI is going to help us with some of our cognitive tasks and some of the routine stuff, so we can offload that, and then we can get on with the things that we're good at and we enjoy. So that kind of fits in with that. And probably the last question, which is, there's no right or wrong answer to this. This is where people are making careers out of debating this. This is, do you think development of technologies like Sophia should be restricted? So a small percentage said yes, we should only be doing very, very narrow AI research. So the majority, yes, but we should be carefully reviewing and controlling what is produced. So that makes, so we're all sort of fairly cautious in terms of we think this technology is good, but we need to keep a real eye on where it's going. That's interesting. No, we should be developing as much as we can but the challenge is so hard and there's no need to worry about the safety. So we've got about 24% said that. And 29% said no, we should just go for it, and whatever happens, happens. So that's quite interesting. So what we're going to try and do is over the next few months bring a few different people in with different views of AI, and we might run this poll again and see whether we get a similar result than this. So that's excellent. But that's good. So that's really just ways to think about, just trying to get us to think about AI slightly differently. So we've done quite a lot of hands-on coding, machine learning and maths and all sorts. This is kind of a very different AI. This is AI that's kind of out there. And we have to sometimes keep going back and remembering that there's people and humans involved with all this. And then just to quickly finish, so we've reviewed that. She's got a lovely wig on in that one. She looks much better with that. What other people think? Sophia is actually really, really controversial in the community. So most people, when they've looked at the code behind Sophia, say that she's nothing but an advanced chatbot. That's all she is, but she's been hyped up to be something completely different. And as a result, many experts think that Sophia is actually really bad because it's giving people who don't know much about AI the wrong impression. It's giving people the impression that we're much further advanced than we actually are, and that we are creating humanoid robots, like you see on the television. And even the people who make it acknowledge that it's not perfect, and actually that's a bit of a marketing ploy. The fact that she's constantly on Cosmopolitan, Ellie, and television programs as well, they're not reaching out to our people, they're reaching out to normal people and trying to create a bit of a stir, really. And that's the problem, is that people then try to think that it's much further along than it actually is. And that's highly controversial amongst the experts. And I think that probably sums it up properly, actually, is that it's, none of it's artificial general intelligence. It's not that advanced, but at the same time, it's not that simple. What she's doing is actually really impressive, but they've kind of marketed it to make it look as if it's much, much worse. Yeah. And also Hanson, which is the first guy we saw, and also sitting next to her when she was on Good Morning Britain. Even those little jokes to have, like, "Oh, are you going to take over the world?" and she says yes. That's actually, it's a bit of a joke, but actually some people might take that quite seriously, and it's giving the wrong impression. So ethically and morally, there's some questions about Sophia and how she's presented, particularly when there is a clip. I put the link to it in the slides. Actually, there's a clip where there's an American presenter and she says, "Oh, she's basically alive," and he says, "Yes, she is," and that went out to the US. And they voted for Trump, so they don't believe anything. So yeah. And there's also some, other people putting in some quite strong views about Sophia. So she's actually sort of quite a nice discussion point. It's always good to sort of come back to things like this. And always this is kind of what we're trying to do, is give people enough knowledge that they can kind of see through some of the mist and some of the mystique, and try and understand actually where we are and what things we're actually doing, and where AI is really useful and where actually it is just an exaggeration. Fantastic. That's pretty much it for tonight. If there's any questions at all, in terms of if you're playing with the code and you've got any questions, any problems, please contact us either through Twitter, or we've also got a Slack channel. Feel free to go on that, ask questions, and we'll try when we've got chance to reply, and also help each other. So if someone asks a question and you've solved it and we're not around, then please help each other, build the community. The next meeting is going to be on the first Thursday of next month, so that's Thursday the 7th. And we're going to continue on a similar theme to what we've just done with Sophia. Other events to be aware of that are happening. So PyData Bristol, GDPR for data people, and Kubernetes for data scientists. That's OVO Energy, is that how you say it? That's in Bristol this year. So every month PyData rotates between Cardiff and Bristol, and this month it's in Bristol. It's not that far away, so go and say hello. So you can sign up for that meetup, and also the R community, if anyone is interested in R. There's a day of the R language learning and events in Cardiff as well on Saturday 23rd of June. So if anyone is interested in R, learning about R, wants to use it, wants to talk about what they're doing with it, please go and have a look and sign up. And that's it, I'm losing my voice. Again. And so if you've got any questions, please, we can't always get back to you, busy, because there's other things to do.